Hi all, this is Gnomeworks. I'm here to talk to you today about a new Minecraft mod project I've been working on called Blind Mapmaker. This mod is significantly different from my Dungeon Mobs mod in that it attacks an entirely different problem that exists in vanilla Minecraft. That problem is the lack of incentive for exploration. So here we have a game in which you have a theoretically infinite world, and yet I have seen speed plays of Minecraft take 15 minutes. This is because the structure of the game is such that once you know exactly what you need to do, it's incredibly easy to burn through the content. Once you've beaten the Ender Dragon, there is very little incentive to continue playing the game. And to get to that point, there's honestly very little work that needs to be done. This is the problem that Blind Mapmaker seeks to resolve through the introduction of procedurally generated content throughout the world. The goal is to extend gameplay and to give incentive to explore the world as it exists. By as it exists, I mean that part of the goal of Blind Mapmaker is to not interrupt the world generated by Minecraft itself. A lot of the things that it generates are very large structures which can be incredibly disruptive to the natural feeling of the terrain that Minecraft generates. To avoid disrupting that, Blind Mapmaker will eventually, it does not do this today, but will eventually, instead of producing its structures in the world, will produce a dimension in which the structures exist that can be accessed from the overworld through portals. Blind Mapmaker is not the first mod of this kind. There are many other mods that have attempted to add structures and add additional content to Minecraft through the addition of buildings and other similar things. Many of those mods fall prey to one of two problems. Either one, they use prefabricated dungeons, or prefabricated layouts, which results in repetitiveness and players losing interest in the content that they add. Or two, they rely on Mojang's built-in structure generation methods, which quite frankly leave a lot to be desired. Blind Mapmaker's other goal of extending the lifespan of Minecraft gameplay has also been attempted by many other mods. Mods such as Divine RPG add a ridiculous number of dimensions, new mobs, other creatures, other things, other places to explore, and so on and so forth, but they are beyond the scope of vanilla. These mods are post-game, or content that doesn't tie directly into the story of the core game itself. Even something like the Aether, while it sort of builds upon what vanilla establishes, goes above and beyond and has its own separate storyline and things that are happening. The goal of Blind Mapmaker is to stay within the scope of the original game. The goal is you start in the overworld, you eventually go to the Nether, and eventually you go to the end to fight the Ender Dragon. The idea here is to work within that framework and produce an experience that stays within the scope of the original game, while also taking advantage of the procedural generation that is at the heart of Minecraft. But at this point, I've probably talked enough about the goals of Blind Mapmaker. The purpose of this video is as a proof of concept of Phase 1. The goal of Phase 1 is simple. It's a proof of concept of a number of algorithms taken from a series of articles by Sean Howard called Blind Mapmaker, which is where the mod gets its name. Sean Howard based the name of his blog off of a concept from Richard Dawkins, the Blind Watchmaker. Howard's ideas presented in these articles was that you could create an entire game purely through procedural generation. Through a combination of algorithms, tags, and the power of sets, entire worlds could be produced that were internally consistent and had completely solvable puzzle trees. It is from these ideas that this mod is born. So, enough talking about the history of the mod, let's show you what it can do. I have here my development environment. I have this here rather than showing you a pre-built, preloaded world with the generation so that you can see that I have not gone in and created something, this is the real deal. So we're going to go ahead and run this. So this particular example, first we're going to show you an exploded view of a floor plan generated by Blind Mapmaker. I'm going to show you this exploded view because it's significantly easier to see how the floor plan generated by Blind Mapmaker gets translated into Minecraft. Forge sure does take a while to load these days. I am recreating this world because it is close to 0, 0 on the X and Z axis, which is where I have the demonstration generated. You can see there in the console that the floor plan is being constructed. Alright, please forgive the potato. First, we need to find out which way is north and face that way, because the map is translated into Minecraft west to east, north to south. So, scoot that over there. Over here we have our floor plan file that this generates. So, this is a, let's see here, 16 by 16 grid that is 4 stories high. So this layer right here, this question mark H, are those 2 blocks that I'm pointing at in-game right there. I say blocks, they're actually rooms. And you can see, if you take a look at the floor plan in the notepad file over there and compare it to what we are seeing here, this is translated directly. I will also point out this part here, these 2 small eyes next to each other. Those indicate points on the map that are a room together. So we're going to fly down there and show you. And what that looks like is these boxes do not have a wall between them, because they are a continuous room, or will be if this were not an exploded view. Those sorts of structures are all over the place. As you can see over here, we have an L-shaped room. This here is a hole. The algorithm used to generate these floor plans does not necessarily fill in every hole. It follows a sort of mathematical thing going on here that I'm not going to go into. But basically, instead of producing a completely rectangular block, and also avoiding creating just a random assortment of boxes that aren't necessarily connected to each other, this algorithm starts with a room and then generates outward from it. Once it has all the spots that it's going to fill with rooms, it then generates sets of possible rooms that spot could exist in. So for instance, this @ symbol had a set of a wide variety of rooms that it could have had. It could have had that and the square above it. It could have had just itself and the square below it. It could have had just itself. So when a slot is picked, it will pick a random room possibility from the set of all rooms that are still open to it. It will then place the room and then inform all of the slots that that room now occupies that they are no longer valid. It will also tell every nearby slot that any possible room in its set that contained a slot that is now occupied by a room, that is no longer a valid room. In this way, every single slot in the map is filled. So we avoid issues where the skeleton of the dungeon we want to generate doesn't get entirely filled because we placed a room in a wrong spot. And this is all done procedurally. So now we're going to back out of this, and I will modify the code somewhat. This will reset it back so that the rooms are all nice and together. We're going to make another copy. I have decided to not tie into the seed of the world, which means that every time we recreate the world, we'll get a different dungeon. I did this because I wanted to avoid a scenario where someone could give a demonstration of a world or give a walkthrough of a given dungeon. I don't want that kind of experience. With dungeon mobs, I've specifically gone out of the way to avoid giving out too much information because I want players to have to learn it on their own. There is something about having to figure things out on your own that... Yes, well, there it is. So this is the floor plan generated without gaps between them. between the boxes. As you can see, it's got some interesting things going on. This algorithm makes some quirky things happen, like this hole here that exists. That's the sort of thing that someone almost intentionally wouldn't do intentionally, but it gives this particular dungeon, if it were one out of however many would exist in a world, it gives it a little bit of its own, character. So if we go ahead and hop inside here, oh, right, there seem to be some issues with the placement of the glowstone and the forcing of the updates. So here we have 2 slots that were conjoined to form a room. And now we're outside, apparently. Fantastic. Here's one of the L shapes. Need to turn down the sound on this. Here we have a 1x2 again, and so on and so forth. These rooms, I mean, the floor plan is made up of very simple building blocks. It is the combination of them that makes for makes for an interesting experience. So, that is pretty much the proof of concept for Phase 1 of Blind Mapmaker. At this time, it is hard to say how many phases the development stage of Blind Mapmaker will take. There are a lot of features that I want to implement before I do any kind of release. But stay tuned, and I'm sure I will keep working on it, and perhaps there might be a Phase 2 within the next few weeks. Thanks for watching.